Hello, people of the internet. This is Jacob Rutledge with the FNEC podcast, here with my co-host.
Jared, what's up? What's up? How are you guys today? Hopefully you are well. It is currently a crazy time in the world, but that's fine and dandy. I hope. Okay, so Jacob, how are you? How's everything?
I'm doing pretty good. Everything's all right. Everything's all right. What are we gonna talk about today? What do you think should be a good idea?
Hit us. Anything.
Anything? Recently, recently, I've been doing a lot of this alternative research into an alternative science, or not alternative science, but more the idea of history might not being told the way that we are finding it to be in modern times. We are starting to find multiple civilizations and groups of humans that aren't Homo sapien that are far, far older than we ever thought humanity was. For instance, there's a whole civilization they think that used to live in Antarctica. Well, that's crazy because Antarctica, the only time it could have been habitable before the ice sheet, and the last time the ice sheet wasn't there was, well, like 22,000 years ago. What are your thoughts on this?
This is quite bizarre and definitely something that you don't really get to because when has anyone has ever explored Antarctica? That's never been like, oh yeah, I can recall the time that Spain decided to send a couple of scavengers to go.
They found it in a Turkish library, by the way, and and it was like a royal library. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. But not only is there that civilization, that may be older than 22,000 years, which is like Göbekli Tepe to Göbekli Tepe. Um, that's the oldest civilization that we currently officially know. Well, the Denisovans are a hominid group that inhabited the Siberian.
What's hominid? I don't know what that is.
Oh, hominids. It's Hominids are different classifications of humans.
Humans.
They're subspecies essentially, and
Like a Neanderthal?
exactly like a Neanderthal, like you say. Neanderthals, Denisovans, the Homo sapiens, and potentially the Paracas people.
What?
So, Jared, how much do you know about the Paracas?
I don't know nothing.
Okay, the Paracas are a civilization that inhabited the Incan and Mayan areas long before they ever did. I think up to 3,000 years ago, if not older than that. And the odd thing about these people are they're entirely red-haired. They had light skin likely, and they probably had very light green or blue eyes.
Wait, that's not traditional Native American genetics.
You're right. You're right. That's not the weirdest thing about them. These people had cone heads. And one of the lead researchers into this has been doing this for 8 years, and he has come to the conclusion that they are genetically different than Homo sapiens. The actual size of the heads, the blood vessels that run into them, the way where the tendons and ligaments are attached, are nothing like ours. So it has to be genetically different. The capacity of the skull.
I understand it's pretty natural to be skeptical of stuff like this, but I also believe that like people can use skepticism to like overuse skepticism and be over skeptic, and it defeats the whole purpose of being skeptic and like pursue knowledge, and where you just deny things just because it doesn't really fit in what you think the world is, and which is I believe why a lot of this alternative history, this stuff that is like, oh, what if we are actually wrong about this and that, and that maybe some of our ancestors were sea-bearing, and perhaps the Vikings did do this and did go to a continent that we did say wasn't previously explored, even though there was already humans on there. Uh, I definitely think we should be open-minded and should be interested in pursuing this, but we shouldn't just outright just deny it. But there's also some reasons should be withheld or with obvious doubt.
And especially with the idea that some of these civilizations would be so old. In fact, the Denisovans date back at the oldest 150,000 years, according to carbon dated teeth. They had really, really advanced bracelets and even needles, which implies tailored clothing. And to have bracelets means they're machined out and all this other crazy shit. They're insane. And this is all over 30,000 years ago. This is thousands of years before we thought that we could ever do most of this stuff. So this is some real advanced stuff. Crazy stuff. Oh, well, the Denisovans would have probably been around 7.5 feet on average. Yeah, maybe a little bit smaller than that, but they were very large hominids. The Paracas, there's some debate on if the Paracas were large or if the Paracas were kind of small. They probably came from Iran and the Afghan region, where red hair and green eyes originate. And so all this hominid talk essentially leads to what happened to them. They all interbred, and with extinction periods and wars and stuff, it probably led to the unification of what we now know as the Homo sapiens.
Yes, absolutely. I also know that there's a certain hominid species in Australia. They were, I believe, under 4 feet tall, and it's super interesting. And like, if you go on to say the human evolutionary branch, and you go through the great apes, and you look at like the relatives of the Homo sapiens, you find a lot of interesting of these other hominids that clearly have some sort of culture because they had weaponry, they had this and that, but we never really explore this aspect in like school, like in history. You don't really talk about well, the Neanderthals were very well kept, had their own establishment. Like we obviously don't talk about that, and it's very unique. But yeah, it definitely is a super interesting concept. And I love ancient civilizations. It's like, because why do we believe history is the way it is? Well, because that's the way we think it is. But what if that's not true? It could be. History is really hard to document back in the day.
Which, while it was very hard to document back in the day, unfortunately now it's kind of easy, and that's coming back to bite us. In Enoia talks, the islanders' displacement of the islanders of Enoia talk. Well, back during the age of atomic bombs, we did some tests in Enoia Atoll, which is a string of islands, and it might even be, that might only be one of the string of islands, but it's this huge nation, 200,000 square kilometers of island, and the U.S. used that as atomic testing grounds. Well, what do they do with all the fallout, all the cartridges, all the bombs?
Bigger than what?
Oh yeah, this bomb was thousands of times larger than Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
And they were just left on their island?
Yeah, they displaced the people, and to make sure that the American people thought it was okay, they made a propaganda video, kind of. It's kind of sad. And now to dispose of all the waste, they used one of the craters. They didn't line it, and then they covered it in cement, all the waste. Well, now it's leaking out into the Pacific Ocean, and it's what they use to detect radiation isn't even working. They don't know how irradiated the waters and food they're eating is. Oh, and with raising sea levels, guess what? The dome that contains all that nuclear waste is about to be destroyed. It's pretty bad.
Absolutely wild. America's not doing so hot with this, aren't they? That is definitely not something that it should be. This is environmental hazard. This is like plastic is one thing, but nuclear waste just in the Pacific. Yeah, like, do you know how many Pacific islands there are? A whole lot. Like Australia is going to be affected. Japan, uh, uh, India, China. Like everyone in the Pacific is going to be harshly. The Philippines. I think the Philippines. Yes, the Philippines. Yes. This is not gonna end. This is gonna be horrible for America. Is gonna be affected. South America. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Canada. Yeah. The whole world is gonna experience this, and then guess what? No one's talking about this, and that is, well, some people are obviously, this isn't mainstream news, and that's really messed up because this is about the health, about the planet, the place we live on.
No, yeah, this is a huge injustice, not only to the people, but that lived there, that were displaced, and now some of them can't even go back home because the bombs were dropped directly on their islands and enveloped them, essentially. So now some of them will never, ever be able to go home, and their homes are so irradiated that they'll never, ever go back. And it's sad. It's hard to hear their stories. It's hard to hear how passionate these islanders are about their home, and it sucks. And what's worse, even, is the guys who built the dome and the guys who cleaned up all the waste weren't given any sanitary equipment. They were doing it in jeans and hats and told that, oh, it's fine. And now they're dying and they've got horrible conditions. Their kids were born with birth defects. It's awful, and no one's hearing about it.
Yeah, I know. Like, people are like, this has major effects on the, like, this is affecting obviously the people who still live around these islanders who still call this place home, who have always called this place home, who are now just tossed in with this horrible nuclear waste that is affecting their homes and family. And we even have sent our own soldiers to go and clean up this mess without any proper gear. And for the media, we just put them in little hazmat suits. But guess what? Even in that video, I believe there's a scene where a guy is holding a shovel without any gloves. He's wearing a hazmat suit without any gloves. So, like, if that says anything about what hazmat suits are used for, I don't know what is. But they did not use hazmat suits. It was just, and it's horrible to think that America was able to do that to their own people, and even to these islanders. Like, it's an injustice, harshly, for these people that they call home.
Unfortunately, fortunately for the U.S., we don't allow any of their food grown or fishes caught to be imported to the U.S. Well, unfortunate for them, that's the food they have to eat. Highly irradiated, mutated fish and food and plants that they have to grow in this irradiated soil that was pelted with atomic radiation.
Absolutely bizarre. Right now, America is doing super, super well. If you can hear the sarcasm in my voice. And I hate to say this, because I am a full-blood American. And I love me some god dang America. I love America, like everyone else in America. But I have heavy buts. America is not in at all a good place, and it hasn't been in a good place for quite some time. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It boils down to how our senators are operating it, how the response to the global pandemic right now, it's awful, right? And it's truly remarkable just to see how dumb they think the common people are, and then you look at everyone else, and the media is able to play it off so easily, like, oh yeah, don't even acknowledge this aspect of reality, and people are able to go right by without realizing that there has been a big injustice done to them, and that's what the media is for. It's the rich people doing a lot of bad things and paying the media to make it look like it's not that bad and to only show the good stuff and the bad stuff of their opponents. And is that what the media should be? That's not what I thought. I thought there shouldn't be an objective besides truth, and there is no truth anymore.
Oh, absolutely. No, the only time you'll ever see rich people being called out for their bullshit is when their opponents get a hold of something. You see it often with the president, and you see it a lot lately with a lot of his, no offense, his fuck-ups that he's been making when he says things on stage lately. He's been saying a lot of things that tend to not be true or he has to take back. Which it's a lot of pressure what's going on for the guy. I'm not necessarily blaming him. I just think that maybe there could have been some smarter moves, and I think that on the other hand, his current presidential opponent has also been being attacked, not unjustly. So we're getting to see a lot of the injustices in America currently because of this outbreak, and because the outbreak happened election year, we're seeing a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is like it's one heck of a year to have this virus, isn't it? An election year. Oy vey. I do say. So like Amazon. Amazon didn't pay taxes. Like what, 2019 or 2018? It's one of those years. And I think they still like commonly do that. A lot of companies do that where they don't get to they have tax cuts because of a program, because that makes sense. But a big company that makes a lot of money should be wait. So the common people who, feed their families and who make money to secure the stability of their homestead, no, we can tax them. Oh, it's fine. Oh, but Amazon is doing all right. Amazon is making us a lot of money, so let's not have to tax them so that we can take the money to give it back to the people. I don't like that idea. I think they should keep their money because I think they know what better to do with their money than the people. And I feel like that's not what America has been. It's the grassroots. It's not, oh yeah, just let the top people all the money figure it out. Well, first of all, the only people who are going to stay on the top are the people that the top are going to let stay on the top. The family, and that's not how this should work.
That's almost like what we were originally fighting not to do, fighting against actually, keeping families in power and. Wait. What would Washington think?
Wait, you talking about George Washington? Why would you? Okay, George Washington comes out, right? He comes out of our closet, in the room that we are in, right? And he somehow knows everything, right? What would he say? What would he say? What do you think my man George Washington would say?
To clarify, I meant Denzel Washington. No, I'm not serious at all. But no, I think I would ask him why he was in our closet. Why George Washington are you in our closet? Two, do you want to join in on the podcast? That would be oh my god, the clout from having George Washington on our podcast. I think he would. George Washington. Let's not put him on a pedestal. He did own slaves. He would probably disagree with a lot of our opinions, but I do think he had the foresight, like you have said a lot, to see that the nation and the way that people view other people will change, and that's why we have amendments and stuff, and why we can change them and over time.
Because I am actually very capable of saying that the founding fathers of the USA may not have been the best of men. Most of them weren't, and I don't think none of them ever claim to be. And I think that's kind of the thing. And they were good men for their time, but granted, can you really oppose our standards of what we can and we are currently, and it is pretty messed up that he had slaves. Like slavery's like always pretty messed up, but like besides the point, it is definitely interesting that we can just 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 blanket our morality onto them, because it's definitely a whole different reality. But besides that, I definitely believe the founding fathers were had one thing that we don't have today, and that is the foresight, being able to like, oh yes, right now things are the way it is, and we are able to figure out how it works right now, but things will change. Times, the developments will happen, and over time, people will need a new way. And so amending the Constitution was important to them, and so they had the foresight to add that and being able to fluctuate. And we have added amendments over the years, and it's important. But right now,
To be honest with you, I think that, yeah, none of the people we currently have in power have much foresight into the future and how we should grow.
oh no! They definitely have some foresight. You know how some of those people in I believe senators who were they had the foresight to sell like all their stocks before before the coronavirus pandemic reached the public, because they were briefed before the public, and used their insider knowledge, which is called insider trading, which is I believe illegal. I don't know. I'm not a guy. I'm not a person that knows the law. Point. It is pretty fishy, the fact that these people do not care about their people. They will not have the foresight to. How can you trust someone like that?
See, yeah, I absolutely agree. You can't trust someone like that. It's hard to trust someone like that. If you can't have a leader who wants the best for the entirety of the people they lead, and you can't have leaders that all want that want to see us as both a nation, and not just a nation, but as a whole people. We are about to be a multi-planetary species, for crying out loud. We need the foresight to see how we can change and we can grow. And I think that for the majority of it, we should not look to the past and see, like, we were doing these things in the 50s. We need to look to the future and go, yeah, that worked then, but it might not work now. And we need to find whole new configurations and ways to work through today's problems, because a lot of the things from the past won't work today. On a future note, a little bit off topic, brain interfacing.
Well, I think you skipped a perfect segue, actually, and you could have been like, oh, yeah, people nowadays don't have any foresight. But my man Elon Musk, however, has.
You're right. That was very obvious. I wanted to, but then I couldn't think of, yeah. No, yeah, Elon Musk is currently trying to get into brain interfacing, which, for right now, will just essentially allow you to be a technomancer, and you can just telepathically, like, Professor X your computer and get what you want on screen. Like, you can be like, oh yeah, Despacito too, but in your mind. It'll be crazy.
Oh yeah, so he's essentially working on the technology. So the idea behind what his process is, the logic behind it is the idea that AI is going to be like potentially connected to this whole artificial world, and will be able to directly interface with the world. While we'll be like currently, our input into our digital devices is super slow. Like, most people use their phone, and so they would only use their two thumbs in order to interact with the whole internet. They can use their eyes to use it, but they only have their thumbs. While essentially this Neuralink, this brain interface, will allow people to essentially interface with their brain onto their devices. So instead of our inputs with our hands, it will be more of a thought. And this technology is super crazy, and it's only right now, I believe, potential human clinical trials will be done later 2020 this year.
Yeah, either later 2020 this year or early 2021, hopefully. Um, Elon's brother, though. Elon's brother is also working on some interesting. Kimball Musk. You're right. Earlier, I couldn't remember his name. I was coming up with a bunch of just off the wall names for him. Kimball is working on what I'd like to call urban farms, and would you like to talk about this one, or I'll let you go?
Okay, so yes, urban farms and stuff. So Kimball Musk, Elon Musk's brother, that's super sweet. So this guy has his own company. I believe it's called flip. It's hmm. So Kimball Musk, Musk's brother, has his own company called Square Roots, which is an urban farming company. And so what the idea is actually that they're in shipping unit containers, um, and they are using sort of stacking the plants and just growing the whole all greens in there, and like urban farming is super interesting. And I think Singapore is doing this because they don't have a lot of land, but people all over the world should consider this because we're going to go into probably a food crisis, definitely recently, but also with the increase of human population, and being able to have such like farms so close to like big cities, fresher food will be essentially processed to nearer, and fresh produce will be served, and people will likely have more healthier diets and likely have more variety. Simply that these farms can grow like a lot that we previously couldn't because of due to of nature.
I believe it's the urban farm in South Korea. I think it was in Seoul. I may be incorrect in that, but it's this massive skyscraper, and so like the bottom floors are like I think shopping centers and like eateries, and the whole upper levels are essentially farms. And what this allows for is it allows for much higher or much larger areas to farm in because of how stacked they are, and it allows for using AI and a lot of this advanced machinery, the perfect conditions to grow your food. You can change the color of your food. You can change the taste. You can change the size of the fruits you grow. You can grow seasonal fruits and vegetables, and you can grow fruits from all across the world, even if they might not grow in your region, because the technology allows it to stay at its optimal settings.
Absolutely wild, and I'm definitely this is the future of farming, because currently farming is kind of hard because the soil nutrition is definitely hard, and the idea that more recent research that's been done into farming has found that there's actually ways to farm with less water, and just less uh, waste, and so these people will be able to grow inside in closed environments, so they don't have to even use pesticides. No pesticide will ever be used, because if your food is grown in outside, it needs to be pesticide needs to be used because there are pesticides everywhere outside. Whoa, crazy! But these will be healthier. It'll be grown, and it will likely not even have dirt taste because of these certain like there's aeroplaning. I'm sure I'm messing up the names. Aeroplaning, hydroplaning, and which like hydroponics, blah blah blah. So hydroponics is that like they're essentially having these pots of plants and water of nutrients essentially go into the roots, and it's super interesting, and they get the nutrients from the water essentially. And then the hydroponics, it works by spraying a mist of nutrients onto the roots of the plants. No soil is involved, and it's just the nutrients, and it uses 90% less water, lost lot less, and it's super, and a lot less land and dirt because it's no dirt. And it's absolutely wild that farming can be so awesome.
Not only that, but because of the way that they're grown, it's much faster too. You can get more food quicker. And so what that allows for is a lot more space for food over time. You can just keep producing and producing and producing, and well, I mean, it'd be like when we first discovered agriculture. It'll completely revolutionize agriculture.
Vertical farming is the future. We must build up. And no, I think it is absolutely true, and I definitely like it. Okay,
Speaking of building up, have you heard about a lot of what these Middle Eastern countries are doing in their race for the biggest structure ever built?
what do you mean? Wait, what? I'm intrigued.
Okay, I believe it's Saudi Arabia, but it might also be Iran. We're gonna have to look into this. They're trying to build a super like green, eco-futuristic city. Well, in the middle, they want to build a tower larger than the Burj Khalifa. Well, Dubai is already building a tower larger than that tower because they were like, well, we want to build a tower larger than the Burj Khalifa. Well, then another country in the Middle East was like, well, we're wanting to build a 3,000 feet tall tower. Well, Japan is like, well, Tokyo doesn't really have more room to build, so we need to build in the bay. Well, in the bay, we want to build a mile-high tower connected to a small little series of cities. Well, also in the bay, they want to build this giant super pyramid that is a multiple skyscrapers, and it's essentially a city pyramid. It's fucking whack.
A city pyramid, and this is actually something that I'm blown away. Like the design of it is super intriguing, but it's also super confusing because never before has this even been like conceptualized to like an actual degree. And it's super interesting to see that potentially there might be like these little like because the way they would have to transport it across buildings, it would be like tunnels, and it's like what the heck.
Oh no, yeah. All these buildings are really pushing the envelope for what we can do with modern engineering, and it'll get to the point where like there are even models where they're not trying to build them. They're so fucking large. We're talking the largest is like 2.5 miles. Only a few of those you could get to the bottom of the ocean at the deepest point. That's how large these things are, and actually that's how large the ocean is. But I digress. It's absolutely bonkers the size of some of these projects that are being built, and it's absolutely bonkers the size of some of these projects that are being conceptualized as we could build these, and also some of these that are we should build these.
And it's definitely super interesting with all these potential plannings for these cities. It's like wow, like the future is going to be super interesting. And I believe there's one country that is definitely interested in the future and is also trying to build their own super city. China. Ooh, China. Not only is China building a super city, they're doing it in a very unique fashion. I believe.
So the city of Macau is a sister city to Hong Kong. One was ruled by the Portuguese, Macau, and Hong Kong was ruled by the English until recently when China got hold of both of them. Well, Macau is essentially Vegas on steroids, and it's like they make all their income on gambling. Hong Kong is not that. Hong Kong actually likes being a democracy and wants to not be in China.
But China, being is they actually were given the rights, but the agreement between the people who the idea was that Portugal and England were giving away their colonies because they were no longer going to do that, and it was obvious to just give it back to the place that nearby, China, and so China took these little segments of land back, so Hong Kong and I don't know. Macau. So in Macau was obviously super interesting, being that they be able to legalize gambling and a lot of other stuff that allowed for a lot of money to flow through. However, if Macau was to say lose their gambling, the economy would instantly collapse, being that majority of it is made absolutely entirely out of a select few, like very rich players that like drop a lot of money, and that's where the real like money is actually made. And Macau, while Hong Kong is actually a whole some place that has a whole culture and is trying to fight and has their own protests against China. But China wants to take advantage because Macau and Hong Kong are both very, very powerful in trading and have their own like massive corporations, and like they can compete with like Silicon and New York and like trading business. But China wants to incorporate those two and also the nearby city.
So the thing with China is they're directly trying to grow Macau and Hong Kong and China, not China, Shanghai together. Um, the thing is I don't know if they're actively trying to grow Beijing into China or into Shanghai. I did it again. Fuck, into Shanghai. But the thing is, both cities are getting so large, it doesn't matter. They'll both just grow into each other. And so even if Shanghai becomes one massive metrotopia of just massive city proportions, it doesn't matter whether or not they want it. Just Beijing will grow into it.
And however, Hong Kong, Monco, I always forgot it. Monaco, Macau. I'm terrible with names. Well, these countries have borders because they were once separate countries. However, they're now under the two state. I forget one system rule. Uh, But however, in order to go between Hong Kong and China, you essentially have to go through a border. You have to go through Hong Kong's border and then China's approval border, and it's like, oh, it's China, but it's also not China.
No, yeah, exactly. And with that, you go from in Hong Kong, or if you're in Macau, to driving on the left side like the English, to then driving like the China or like the Chinese, which is the opposite. And so it's this weird thing where you have to switch to a different side of the road, and then you have to switch to a different currency because you're going through China. And then when you get to Macau, if you're going to Macau from Hong Kong, you switch back to the same currency, and then you switch back to the other side of the road.
Which is what China is trying to avoid and actually go around by combining these cities into one bigger city that is able to communicate more effectively. And so having a unified currency, unified driving, unified all of this would allow for trading and for this like area, because this little area that they are is a very, very powerful place trading, and would do China very good versus like all other countries. And not only that, they're doing a lot of other stuff in order to ensure their stake in the future. Stuff that may not be for the betterment of certain groups of Chinese people, who I won't go into. Sad. That's it's yeah, no. But China, China, bad.
We could have a whole podcast session of Xinjiang, but yeah, that's a we're gonna say we're gonna. I mean, the province. We're gonna edit that out.
So what is our next topic, boys? What is it? What do you want to talk about? We can talk about your mama, your daddy, your destiny. Um. What is what is the scariest concept in the universe to you? It could be anything. It could be black holes. It could be a theoretical concept of the universe. Anything that would that absolutely like gets under you and is discomfort. It could be any like universal truth, like something about the universe that like kind of frightens you.
That's a very good question. Um, a terrifying concept to me. Maybe strange matter. The idea that there's in the core of neutron stars that it can get so hot that it melts atoms down to quarks, and because the density and pressure of a inside of a neutron star is so great, it would spaghettiify them, turning them all those quarks into a quark bath. And a quark bath, if it got hot enough, which it could inside of theoretically inside of a neutron star, if it became a quark bath, it could turn into strange matter. And if two of those stars collided, or one neutron star that didn't and one that did collided, strange matter would be spewed out into the universe, in theory. In theory, it's already out in the universe, because it's probably happened before. And because of that, we are in a situation where, like, strange matter can, because of its properties, once it exists in our universe, even though it shouldn't be able to, it would, in theory, start to envelop everything, because it's just infectious, because it shouldn't exist, and it can, and now that it can't not, so it'll continue to grow as it touches matter. And that's terrifying, because all it would take is a little grain of sand to completely envelop the Earth in probably a matter of hours. Yeah, it's terrifying shit.
That is definitely frightening. Wow.
What about you?
And concept I definitely find very frightening. It's sort of hard to explain, but it definitely makes sense. And I'll try to explain it in a way that makes sense. Antimatter. And I believe that there is a pocket of matter and a pocket of antimatter, both existing, and that it's sort of like it happens because it's a fracture. Imagine a graph. There's a graph and you have two lines, and one line is one kind of slope and it's a different kind of slope, and there's a lot of areas where they don't intermix, where the answer is not in between, because the answer could be below. It's a certain math thing, right? Well, the answer is in between the two lines. Well, there's a lot outside the line, an infinite amount of things outside of it. But there's also technically an infinite amount in the inside. But you can shrink the thing to be 1 by 1, and the whole graph looks super tiny. And so what looks like there is versus there isn't, it's all loose concept. And I believe that the universe actually is just like is simply skimming by matter is somehow antimatter is pushing all matter away from it for some odd reason. Instead of it colliding, it is pushing each other away. And I don't believe that the universe will do that forever. But granted, this is my own thoughts, and that's not at all proven. And I just believe that, and I definitely just think it's an interesting concept, because where did matter come from? We know matter can't be created nor destroyed, but where was it from? It had to have been started, right? Or does it? Why does any of it make sense? Or maybe the rules were just arbitrarily made up because the universe is just a pocket dimension that makes no sense and is in the void of the abyss of nothingness. I don't know.
That, or we're completely simulated.
VR, baby!
Well, no, yeah, because we're getting to the point, back kind of to the Neuralink thing, where Gabe Newell is a head researcher into essentially using brain interfacing to play video games on a VR level, kind of, using your brain, using your senses, that kind of stuff in video games. Your words?
Yeah, Gabe Newell has been said himself. Gabe Newell said that we are closer to the Matrix than we think. And that's very interesting to think, because Matrix, super cool movie, and if you didn't watch it, it ends really well for people. But no. The idea is actually the technology that Matrix uses, and the idea that we can perfectly simulate a world. But actually, the thing is, in the Matrix, is the whole thing was, that's actually the second Matrix, because the first Matrix was a perfect rendition of the world, but it didn't work out because people were fighting because that's what people naturally do. So they decided to like ease people to like be like these tame, like not complacent AI, not AI, but just they work for Matrix. They only live the Matrix. They only breathe the Matrix, and they won't ever question it. Besides the point, being in a world where I can't tell the difference, super cool because then I can probably be, a cool epic Chad, and not a skinny Chad I am now.
I can finally enjoy what it's like to have the largest historical dong in the world of close to, I think, if I'm correct, the last time I searched it was like freshman year, and a group table in the morning, like 22 inches. Yeah, soft. He couldn't get hard, I don't believe. I don't even remember. We might have to look him up. And honestly, like, yeah.
Wild, super wild, bro. Super.
Will you also be enjoying But see, unlike him, I'll be able to get hard because it'll be a perfect simulation. Will you also enjoy this? Your massive Kong dong.
What the heck, bro? I do not know what the heck you're blogging about, bro. It's super cool. So, however, VR. I like VR. Definitely technology going into VR, quantum computers. VR is gonna be super interesting. I want to see. I don't know. It's just so super cool. Like Half-Life Alyx, super cool game. It was a super unique. I think Valve definitely was able to push the button for VR games because the VR games definitely needs that because people need to play more VR games. It is a super interesting platform to play games. It's a whole new immersion into the whole world. However, currently, it's not where it could be in the future, and in the future it could be super wild. We could be like actually living inside of these worlds, but currently we can still like see like a simulated world right now, and it's super cool and mind-boggling.
And like, imagine when we get to the point when AI is super, super sophisticated, and like that'll be weird when the AI and the video game you're playing in VR will blur the line between your real friends and your companions in a video game. When you go to fucking it'll be not fuck them. I wasn't saying that, but when you go to like sleep or something, and it's like, oh yeah, I wonder what companion Piper is doing or now, like that kind of shit. But you'll actually be like, oh fuck, I'm in this moment for real.
And they're actually like doing something kind of interesting because they are their own personality, and they're actually doing something at the current moment, which would be such a bizarre concept to explore.
Oh, entirely. Because especially when you've got like some of these larger game franchises that could really benefit from Neuralink VR, what we like to call Neuralink VR, because I imagine Gabe Newell and Elon Musk will probably work together on a lot of the brain interfacing issues in the upcoming future.
Faux show, faux show, faux show. So bizarre the world we live in. With America being America, China being China, the world universe being scary, the past being uncertain, the future being hopeful but also frightening. These are rough times. I'll be honest with you. The coronavirus definitely. I won't. I'll come out and say it. I'm afraid. I'm scared. It definitely isn't looking good.
Oh, absolutely. It's a terrifying and horrifying time. Again, it's unfortunate because here in America we have one of the highest amount of cases, but here in America we've also got a super large population, And so one of the reasons why I think nobody's taking this as seriously as they should be is because, well, when you have a million cases isn't even like 1% of our population. That's not feasible to see and be scared over realistically. Like, we're all scared on the inside, but many of these people don't wear face masks out in public. They're not taking the necessary precautions. They hang out with friends and stuff, and it's scary, and they do that, I think, mostly because realistically we'll probably, no matter how, even if the death toll gets past 1 million, we realistically, sadly, probably won't be very phased by that. We'll move on very quickly as a nation, and that's unfortunate, and that's super scary because it's going to cause the spread to go even higher.
Definitely, and I believe people. There's nothing wrong with admitting to be afraid of something that is scary. This is a pandemic. The world governments have been at halting. This is something you should be. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be like, oh, I should be concerned and put on a face mask. It's all right. And if someone looks at you for being weak for wearing a face mask, it's ridiculous. And have you heard of certain things that are happening to employees at stores during these times?
I'm not actually sure. I'm assuming stuff's probably being very, very. They're probably being very cruelly treated. Here in America, we tend to treat employees that work in fast food and retail very poorly.
So currently, what we are doing, America is trying to put all the workers back to work because they want more money, 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 money. We like the money, which is a very scary idea to put all your people into harm's way just because you want your whole business to keep working. Because this won't affect them, like in the long run, their business still runs. But guess what? Like people's homes, like this will affect them. People people are in debt. Have probably lost their business because like the loans that were supposed to be given out to small businesses weren't, because big businesses were able to take that, and it's just not at all a fair place for any business, and it's absolutely crazy. And like employees are being like assaulted due to the fact that like they're confronting customers that don't wear masks, and like their fights are being broken out. There are people who are like I remember I saw one video of a man that wiped his nose on a lady's sleeve because she asked him to wear a mask, and it's so bizarre to see people really reacting so immaturely to this is a fatal infectious disease. It's so.
I personally think that if you try to cause any conflict that is physical, or you touch a worker, an essential worker, who has to probably donate their sick days to any coworkers who get COVID, you should probably be arrested, and you should probably be thrown in jail for a few years, because honestly, you're not doing much for society. If you can't wear a mask out in public, for a health crisis, you shouldn't. Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? Come on.
And I want everyone in America, or even in your own countries, if you're listening outside of America, to look at your government and seeing the response. Are they opening up your town? Are they opening up businesses around you? Are they trying to send people back out to potentially get the virus again? And if your the government is doing that, even though the coronavirus is on the rise in your region, you might want to reconsider a lot of things, because The whole reason why we shut down in the first place was to avoid it. But if the numbers are increasing, but we keep opening up more things, when are the numbers going to go down? They aren't. We might be slowly going down, but like the rest of America hasn't gotten to their plateaus. They're the top of it. They're not even close. This is just the start of it. This is just start of the wildfire. Like the CDC says, there might be potentially 3,000 deaths per day in June. You know how far June is from us? Not that very far. I think it is actually about a month away. Actually, half a month, being that we're halfway through May.
Oh, absolutely no. It's we're going to be seeing. Yeah, most countries will have a second wave. America will not have a second wave. America will have one giant wave. We might have a. You can't see my fingers here, but air quotes second wave because numbers might go down a little bit, and then, the Midwest and the central parts of North America will probably have their peaks, and that'll be our second wave. But it'll only be the first wave, just actually running its course. Where in terms of surface area and how many people occupy America, we're not very dense, so it takes a while for a pandemic to run its course here.
It's absolutely wild, and I believe it's very simple, and the government in America likes to confuse its people to believe one thing or another, and then it was like, oh, we can just say whatever and they'll believe us. It's important for people, like, if you are a voter, you should be able to think. You should have the ability to question your government and be able to ask questions and ponder, does this even make sense? It's like, why are you doing this? Why are you opening up? Why are you? They are pressuring businesses to open up due to the fact that other businesses are open, right? And you guys have to pay rent because you guys are missing out on your rent, and like we can excuse it, but not forever. And you guys, we've given you programs and loans to help you, even though those program loans were taken by big companies that shouldn't take those loans because that was made for small independent companies. But who cares? Who really cares about the U.S. economy? The government really doesn't. They only want the money to be in their pockets, in the pockets of the people they like, and not the actual United States.
Because they have big incentives from owners of corporations that are billionaires, massive billionaires, to do all this stuff. They would rather have the money, like you said. I agree.
And and at one point, one should just look up and just injustice is injustice, and we those must fight for their rights. And right now is a time in which we must fight, and I'm not saying no fighting, no war. No. I mean, we must speak out about things. We must, be upfront about problems, and the working class needs to demand more compensation because they are the lifeline of this country. Without them, this country will die, and this is proving this. This whole COVID-19 proves that without the working class, this whole thing would fall apart. But guess what? The government doesn't care. Let's send them right back into work because this thing might fail and we need that sweet, sweet dough. We don't care about you, your family, your little children, the potential they might get a fatal reaction to the disease that might, make their heart stop. No. Money. But hey, what do I know? I had an ad in this podcast. Well, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the FNEC podcast.